Good evening. We're going to get started here in a second. We always open with a prayer and a pledge, and then we got a lot of fun stuff to cover tonight. So I'm going to give you Angela Bean here, and hold on one second.
Okay, before I get started, does everybody have one of these handouts? If you don't, raise your hand. Sonia will get you one. What we're going to talk about is actually research done by Dr. Kay Bacallao. And many of you know Mary Kay. She ran for state school superintendent. Her credentials were way and above anybody else running for state school superintendent. She is a college professor. She teaches the teachers who teach our children. She also teaches in the K-12 education system. And she's a parent of public school children. So she had more experience in every arena possible to be state school superintendent, but she was going to push back on the system. So that's never makes the establishment happy. So she has put together this PowerPoint presentation. She couldn't be here tonight because she teaches a class on Thursday. I'm going to do my best to try to go through it. But the handout that you have in your hand is sort of the crypt notes of this presentation. Has a list of the education bills that have been passed in the last 4 or 5 years that are really controlling our schools. And I'm going to start off by saying that what I'm going to share with you is not good news for our children who are in public education. And I don't think we can fix it anymore. There's a couple of things we can do to stop the train a little bit, and I'm going to share that with you on some upcoming legislation and some other actions. But most of these bills have been passed by Republicans. They have an R by their name. They're not conservative constitutionalists, they're just Republicans. And so rolling back any of these laws is not going to be possible. I encourage every parent to get their kids out. Get them out of the public education system as quick as you can. All right, so we're going. I got so many things in my hand here. Also, Sonia, did you give as many as you could? Okay. All right. So let me give me a little pointer up here, and we'll go through this. This is all very, very complicated stuff, so I'm going to skip past a lot of it. I'm just going to touch on the highlights, just so you have a broad view of what's going on in our schools and why we've got to get our kids out, basically. The organization Mary Kay founded is Educational Freedom Coalition, and your brochure explains what that is all about. She's really about trying to help parents find alternative educational opportunities for their children, but she also still seeks very highly electing new people to replace these people that have made this mess. Now, inside the brochure, it kind of helps you understand a broad view. This is a tree. Of course, the roots of any tree are what give the nourishment to the tree to flourish at the top. So at the bottom, you're going to see bills, the most egregious bills that have passed in the last 5 years. The black bills are at the state level that have given the tree its foliage at the top. And what you see from the roots of all these bills are, first of all, Common Core. That's what awakened a lot of people 4 or 5 years ago. But then we also have our revisionist history, the next generation of science. We have the positive behavior and intervention support. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We've got teaching the 5 pillars of Islam. We've got crazy fuzzy math. All of these things are the result of these bills that have passed here at the bottom. The red bill, S 1177, was passed this year. That's the Senate version of the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and we're going to talk about that a little bit here shortly. Our federal government funds about 3% of our Georgia's education. They have complete control of what our children are learning for 3% of the money. So don't let any politician tell you we have to take that federal grant money because we need it for educating our children. They're taking it from us in the first place. We're just trying to get it back again. Well, how about not letting them take it from us in the first place? Why don't you work on that? But even at 3% of our education budget, why are we even turning over anything to the federal government or even the state government for 3%? But that's what we've done. Our local elected boards of education have been the authorities overseeing our community schools for these many decades. But the state and federal government, working with the federal government, wants to change that system of oversight. And they're going to do it through the charter school system. Now, I will tell you, I was one of those conservatives 5 years ago that was like, yeah, charter schools, that's the answer. Because I thought they were private schools. I thought they were private education. But then when I started peeling away the layers of the onion, I discovered that charter schools are public schools, but they're run by unelected councils at the charter school. And so, okay, that was okay for a few years. We've been doing this since 1992 when the federal government gave us permission to set up charter schools. Wasn't that the red flag? Shouldn't that have been the red flag in the first place? Wasn't the federal government giving us permission to set up charter schools? But they established a charter school system. It was unconstitutional then, it's unconstitutional now, but we are about to lose complete control through what the state has now done. And the bill number, I have to get up here to see the bill numbers, Senate Bill 84. Went to our local school boards and they said, okay guys, we know it's bad, we know you're having a hard time financially, academically, we're going to give you an opportunity to make that better. You can stay status quo and keep your local control, but you have to still comply with all of the state and federal regulations that are on you for everything from class size and school rating systems and student assessments and on and on. Or you can choose to go charter system or what they call the IE3, which is investing in educational excellence. Now, the charter system and the IE2, I guess is what it is, both comes with strings attached, of course, always, and achievement levels that the local school boards now are going to have to achieve. Every single school district in the state of Georgia did not stay status quo. So now they're in a whole new system. They either went charter system or IE2. So you see the list of what our schools are going to have to do in order to not be taken over by the state. So here's the thing. You don't meet your achievement levels, the state can come in and take over your school and you lose your local authority of your schools. So that is what SB 84 did. Now the State Charter Commission is governed by an unelected council. We got that in 2012 with HB 797 with ballot language that deceived the people. And it was something like, would you like for the state to help convert your bad schools to charter schools when your local school board refuses to do that? So everybody said, yeah, we don't want bad schools, let them do that. So we got an unelected council now that's appointed by the governor overseeing charter schools. And so this is all part of the federal agenda to have one national school board. And you see our state is complying with the federal agenda. Senator Lamar Alexander, back when he was over the Department of Education back in the 80s, had in a speech, we want one national school board and we want the new American schools, which will be from birth to age 21 in school, 365 days a year from 7 to 7 in the evening. That's the new American school that Senator Lamar Alexander's been pushing for. And we see every year as they roll back the funding of early and earlier education, they're getting close to taking our children at birth and letting the state educate them instead of parents. Okay, so Opportunity School Districts. This was SB 133, and that's what I want to show you in your brochure. This is the next ballot referendum that's going to be in the November 2016 ballot. And everybody in your packet has a brochure with 3 Opportunity School District handouts on it. And I gave you a full sheet because, as they say in that shampoo commercial, you tell 10 people, they tell 10 people, they tell 10 people. That's how we're going to defeat this. So what I want you to do, and I'm going to explain to you why you need to do this, but I want you to take this home and photocopy it. Or take it to Kinko's and have copies made. And then I want you to give this to 10 more people and have them do the same thing. This is the only way we're going to defeat this. And why do I want to defeat the Opportunity School District amendment on our ballot to change our Constitution? This is what the ballot language says, and I wrote it on here so that people can put this on the refrigerator and they'll understand. Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended to allow the state to intervene in chronically failing public schools in order to improve student performance? Well, if you don't know what this means in reality, everybody's going to say, yeah, someone has to intervene in failing schools. Yes.
I just want to say, folks, this is another T-splosh. This can be defeated, and that's how critical this is, what she's talking about. Because we got a chance at the ballot, the same thing we did when nobody knew about T-splosh till they told them, and everybody said, no, this is exactly the same thing, and nobody knows about it. And once we copy this and send it out, it's going to change things.
Absolutely. We can defeat this to change our Constitution. And what is the basic goal is to destroy elected representation. I don't know if anybody's ever studied the Communist Manifesto, but that is one of their goals, is to get rid of all elected representation, replace it with appointed councils. And as Charlotte Iserby has said, for the last 30 years, and she's known this was coming for 30 years, once they get rid of the elected school boards, then it's easy to replace your elected county commissioners, your elected city councils, your elected House of Representatives, and so on. So we've got to stop this now. And so Opportunity School Districts, it sounds great. This is the Governor Deal's initiative. He got rounds of applause at the state Republican convention. Yes, Governor Deal, Opportunity School Districts. It was sickening. Yes, do you have a question? Absolutely. I'll send you the electronic version. I'll send Jack the electronic version so that y'all can put that out there. Yeah, Facebook it, Twitter it, picture book it, whatever all these social network things are that I'm still in the 20th century and refuse to get involved with. So Opportunity School Districts, the initiative is the state can take 5% of the lowest performing schools every year and convert them to state-run charters that will be run by unelected councils using your tax dollars. And so you have no say on how those dollars are spent, what those children are learning. The next year they take the next 5% lower, the next year 5% lower. So you see that no matter how high performing your public local school is, you will get there eventually for a charter school takeover, because you cannot. It's not about student achievement, it's about meeting RPI scores, and I'm going to show you a slide on how those work in just a second. So here's a little chart that shows you how we are now. The State Board of Education, appointed by the governor, would love to change that. The Constitution of 1983 made that an appointed board rather than elected. Then the state superintendent's elected, the school board is elected, and if they stay status quo, you've got local control. These others, you don't have local control. Now, CCRPI scores are not about students scoring well on their tests, not about students learning. You don't get your scores to stay off that bottom 5% by students learning and doing well. You get your scores by engaging in programs that the federal government wants your school to engage in. So career pathways for students, well, that's the Soviet style of education, train them for a job rather than giving them academic education. The end of course assessments on Common Core. Okay, so crazy Common Core assessments, you do well on that, you get some points. Growth compares students with other students. So all students can't grow, so that means half the students aren't going to get growth scores, right? So the schools will get some points off if the students don't do well compared to other students. It's not how well you're doing compared to on your knowledge. Now the AP courses, they're going to get extra points in CCRPI for the more students they have involved in advanced placement courses. Well, that's great. It used to be, except now the College Board is headed by David Coleman, who's the lead architect of Common Core. We know the AP courses are going to Common Core, revisionist history, and this sort of thing, and the parents are running like crazy from it. The positive behavior intervention and support, I'm going to save that for last. International Baccalaureate down at the bottom again, that's a program from UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. You do not want your child participating in an IB course. They will be taught globalism, sustainable development, all the ideas of the United Nations run quickly. And there are entire schools that are international baccalaureate schools. Positive behavior intervention and support. Our schools can get extra CCRPI for participating in this. Right now, state law is mandating that in a school district, if your school has a school climate rating of 60 points or less, you must have PBIS in your school. Now, right now, local school boards are voting whether to expand it to all the schools because they're going to get extra CCRPI points if they do that. Now, PBIS is a very interesting program. This actually stems from the federal idea of reauthorization of 1997 Act. And since all of you don't have this, I'll read to you what the federal government says about PBIS. Since Congress amended the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act in 1997, positive behavioral supports has held a unique place in special education law. PBIS, referred to as positive behavior interventions and supports in IDEA, is the only approach to addressing behavior that's specifically mentioned in the law. So in other words, when did the federal government get the authority in the Constitution to be concerned about our children's behavior in school? There is no authority, except they pass this act and our states act like that's constitutional and we go along with it. So PBIS, basically, when you research what it is, it should actually be titled a little differently. And it should be titled, "The Federal Government Program for Changing the Values of Our Nation's Children While Collecting Private and Confidential Data and Sharing the Information with the Federal Government." That should be the name of the program. It has nothing to do with taking a little 6-year-old child who's pulling a little girl's ponytail on the playground and making sure that he doesn't do that anymore. So changing the values of our children. And while our school board members are told by the promoters of this program that it's very benign, it's just about using positive reinforcement for bad behavior rather than discipline. Well, the teachers will tell you right now that this is a bad idea. They're not allowed to tell any student, even at the 5 and 6-year-old age, no, don't do that anymore. They're supposed to take that student and take them over here. Well, let's come over here and do a positive activity instead of kicking your classmate. Let's do something positive over here. This is ludicrous, okay? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. What the federal government really wants is to change the definition of a bully. And a bully in this program, you read the federal documents and the training for the teachers, a bully also includes any child who does not believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. Any child who espouses the Christian belief that homosexuality is not right will be tagged as a homophobic and will be remediated and remediated and remediated until they no longer espouse that belief. That's the federal program. Okay? So PBIS is a very dangerous program. And GLSEN is the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. GLSEN is the organization that's responsible for all of this in our schools. They're a very powerful group. The Federal Education Secondary Education Act, the ESEA, you know, was authorized in 1965. Federal government created this act to take control of our schools at that time. So that's under authorization right now, and currently the names of the bills, the Senate bill and the House bill. The Senate bill is Strengthening America's schools for, what is the name of the Senate bill? Strengthening, it's crazy. Student Success Act is H.R. 5, S 1177, Strengthening America's Schools for Student Achievement or something like that. The bill was Senate Bill 1094 in the 2012 Congress. And okay, achieve. Everybody wants a child to achieve. Well, in the S 1094 in the 2012 version, Senator Al Franken inserted a piece of legislation into the $1,500 boondoggle ESEA reauthorization that would redefine a student that is homosexual as falling under the, ideas of disabilities, the discrimination. And it's called the Student Non-Discrimination Act. And it said, the Congress finds the following public school students who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, or LGBT, have been and are subjected to pervasive discrimination, including harassment, bullying, intimidation, and violence, and have been deprived of equal educational opportunities in schools in every part of the nation. That's his premise. The S in it's S 1177 is passed. It's in the Senate, has passed. Now the H.R. 5 is the House version. It has still not passed. But Republicans, H.R. 5 is not passed. Okay, it's still in the holding cell, but we've got to stop it. That's why we need to call our representatives and say, don't vote for that. It's very egregious. I have a letter, and I can send this to Jack. This actually came out from Karen Bracken in Tennessee, but American Principles Project helped to put together this letter. They've read both bills, and they've outlined what's wrong with the bills. Federal involvement in standards development, federal mandated testing, federal curriculum. When you listen to the hearings on these two bills, I listened to them 3 years ago, they admit that if the state takes $1 single from the reauthorization of the ESEA, the federal government will have complete control of our schools. They admit that in Senate hearings. So we need to make sure our state does not take any money from the ESEA ever again. 3% of the money, remember, we can turn that down. But they will refuse to do it unless we stand up against them. The other egregious part of the PBIS is that it's all about data collecting, data mining our children and passing that information on to the federal government. And we're not data mining their test scores and their homework grades. We're data mining their mental attitudes, their home life. We're asking them questions on these surveys that are done on computers, so the teachers don't even know what the questions are, much less the parents. And the students at the very youngest age are asked questions of drug and alcohol use, weapon use, weapons at home, bringing weapons to school, suicidal thoughts, depression, do you feel safe at home? These are the kind of questions that young children are being asked without the knowledge of their parents. Yes, Sonia?
I just want to add to that. My son was a junior last year, and they not only did that in our Title I school, they gave them an incentive they could get out of class if they would take these surveys. And these kids, by the way, a lot of them on the drug questions, see, they were assuming children are going to be completely honest, so I don't know how valuable their surveys are anyway. And I don't know if that impacts your child, but they are keeping it. They're making stuff up. Yeah, I smoke pot this many days a week. My friends take coke. They think it's funny because they don't. They think these questions are. And so it's taxpayer money. It's without our permission. They never asked us, and they're telling the kids you can get out of class if you're willing to go. So just if you have kids in school, talk to them. Ask them, and then tell them, that they're not to take surveys. Again, mine's in private school now, by the way, that's why we're here. So you won't be taking any more of those surveys.
So our school boards are considering expanding PBIS to every school in the district to get these extra CCRPI points. So here's your question for your local school board members. If you get 2 minutes of free speech time at your local school board. Here's your questions. Local school boards are being told that this is only a program to foster positive behavior in students, but it seems to go against what the feds are training the facilitators to teach. So in order to help all parents, teachers, and the community to be comfortable with this PBIS, we believe the training materials for teachers should be made available to the public. The PBIS agreement of accountability measures should be made public. Any lesson plans, computer programs, workshops, videos to be used in the classroom with students should be open for review. Also, any surveys and assessments of students and teachers should be made public before implementation. Parents should be allowed to opt in their students once they understand the program. Opt-out is always a bad idea. That's how the schools get away with it. We send a letter home in mass on the first day of school. You sign it if you want to opt out of anything. Most of those letters don't come back, and when they don't get the letter back, it's implied consent. So it should be an opt-in letter with the parent's signature with an explanation of the course that the child is participating in. And none of the schools do that. Then on the data mining, the district agreement states the district should assist with collecting, interpreting, and action planning around data. In other words, team implementation checklists, benchmarks of quality, self-assessment survey, and PBIS evaluation. So the question for your school boards, what data? What kind of data are you collecting? So it is time to challenge our school boards. They're all undergoing this. If you've got grandchildren in public schools, if you have children in public schools, if you have neighbors with children in public schools, we need to get to the school boards and stop these kind of actions. So those are two things that you can do right now, the opportunity school districts and stop the PBIS expansion so that the schools get the CCRPI points. And also check out your school's IE2 agreement. You won't like it when you read it, nor will you like the charter system agreement when you read the fine print. The CCRPI points, as Mary Kay points out, have declined statewide. This is because the scores were mathematically created to decline even with the exact same scores year to year. It's a trick, so schools will do the bidding of the US DOE. You're going to see your school ratings drop regardless of how high performing you thought your school was. The Hope Scholarship requirements. This is another thing. To get Hope Scholarship, they're really encouraging AP courses and the IB courses or dual enrollment for English and history. And English now is no more than reading of informational text. It's full of propaganda, and you know history is also revisionist. So it's interesting that our kids can qualify more points to get Hope Grant if they take these United Nations indoctrination programs. And of course the advanced placement and the IB, they're all part of that extra scoring for students to get the Hope Grant. The teacher evaluations, I'm not going to go into a lot of that, but teachers are scared to death because of these evaluations. They are silent. Do not go to your child's teacher and expect them to tell you the truth about what's going on. They're scared to death of losing their job. I've talked to a teacher last week. She's 3 years from full retirement. She hates what's going on. She can't say a word. She's got to go 3 years and do the bidding of the federal and the state government because it means $1,000 more in her retirement pay if she holds out 3 more years. This is what you're seeing all of the teachers. That's why you don't hear teachers complaining. They will replace that teacher in a heartbeat with a computer monitor teaching that course. And you'll see the legislation I'm talking about here. Teacher certification. Okay, well, college or career ready. It's work-based learning. Beware, because we did pass a law in 2012, SB 89, I believe, is mandated online learning. Work-based learning, HB 766. No need for academics after the 10th grade. No, but they can go work somewhere for free as an intern for 2 years and get their high school diploma. So that's law now. Career clusters, career education beginning in kindergarten, where the pathway for that kindergarten child is selected by the government.
Is that federal or state?
Oh, it's federal, trickled down to the state, because the state took some federal money. Absolutely, career pathways. Career education is great, but the government should not be making those decisions. The students and parents need to decide what they want their career pathways to be. The state will be assigning career pathways starting in kindergarten based on their online tests and nosy surveys. Okay, online learning, SB 89 passed in 2015. Teachers should be very concerned about this. This is the way to replace the classroom teacher, remove the stage on the stage, as my school superintendent in Fayette calls it. Mandated, one class every year must be on the computer, and I think that starts in middle school. But think about how many teachers you can get rid of with just one class per student all year. That's a lot of teachers that aren't needed anymore. And that will just evolve to every class being taken on the computer. The state also pushes the state homeschool online courses. Free homeschooling online courses offered from the state. It's the exact same curriculum, parents, that you're teaching them in the schools, but they're in front of a computer monitor with no moral compass of a school teacher to go, well, that's not right. And no parent paying attention. So we are on the road to complete digital classrooms, especially with the legislation, I think it was passed last year, to give every student their own personal electronic device, whether it's an iPad or a laptop. Taxpayers going to pay for it, starting in 5th grade. Now, what parents should be concerned about is the repercussions if that child breaks it or loses it, because then the parent has to pay to replace it. Remember when you had to replace that Texas Instrument calculator for your kids? It was $300. How bad that hurt? Just wait till you have to replace a laptop. It's $2,000 when they break it or lose it. And so, yeah, it's great to get it the first time, but just wait till they lose it. But state-run digital classroom, that's coming. I don't even know what that, oh, this is the federal bill. Okay, this is Senate Bill 1177 that passed. It's going to cost $124 billion to us taxpayers to trickle down to the local level to control our children's education. And it's H.R. 5 that is still pending. That's the one you call your representative and say, vote no. Stop it. And then you go to your state representative and say, don't take any of that money. We don't want it. I don't know what that is. Student discipline, that goes back to the PBIS. And that's also in the federal legislation. This just sort of shows you the schools with the lower ratings are concentrated around South Atlanta. The orange dots are the lower rating schools. Those will be the first ones taken over by charters run by the state, more than likely. Average third grade reading exceed rates or higher for schools with higher climate ratings. Well, that's typical. And private schools are going to be taken over as well by the federal legislation. So private school parents, you need to be aware of that. And Council for American Private Education is not really a supporter of true private schools. They're working with the federal government to take over the private schools, and they'll do it with money. All right, so what about, any questions?
What does the CAPE stand for?
Oh,
3 slides back.
yes, Council for American Private Education. They are not what the name implies. Go look it up. It's crazy. You see, here they are. They're collecting data at the private schools now. That's going right to the National Center for Educational Statistics. And this is a little bit about the Every Student Achieves Act. Jody Heiss, we need to thank him for voting no on H.R. 5. It's still not passed all the way out. It's probably coming out of a committee or something. But anyway, Mary Kay does a lot of writing to our local newspaper, and strangely enough, it's as if the parents don't see these articles or don't care, but we don't see a large flow out of Fayette County schools because Fayette County has some of the best schools in the state, allegedly. All right, any questions? I know I went through that kind of quick. Carolyn.
I think it's important to note that in order to qualify as a good school, you've got to get all these points. That's not based on merit or student achievement. It's based on cooperation with programs. And so it really has nothing to do with whether the children are getting educated.
That's right.
And I think it's very important people know that this really isn't about education anymore.
Right. So when you hear members of Congress say, well, we want to help local schools, you know, student achievement, they're not helping our children learn better, become wiser, and great American citizens. It's about taking over our children's education to train them how the government wants to be. And we know we're seeing that. When you see Bernie Sanders having thousands and thousands of young people at his rallies, you know our schools have done a good job of indoctrinating into socialism.
Yes, every single legislator in Cherokee County voted to put this on the ballot.
Absolutely.
They're in Cherokee County, every single one.
It's a Republican initiative. I don't know of any Republican that voted against it. Maybe except Senator Mike Crane.
And every one of them is the primary.
That's exactly right.
Second generation Cubans. Voting for Obama in Florida, you know that they're doing a good job in school.
Second generation Cubans voting for Obama. It happened. Yeah.
Brought from the school.
Yes. They obviously weren't taught any Cuban history either, were they? Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.